We open up the mailbag once more to answer your questions on a potential new starting lineup, which free agent role players would help next season, and if Zion Williamson is the answer to Miami's superstar problem. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And for daily Heat content, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on your podcast app. This is part 2 of our 2-part mailbag. If you missed part 1, you can check that out in your podcast feed and on YouTube. Answered a bunch of questions in that episode and did talk about Giannis tweeting something about liking to play in Florida City. So if you want that breakdown, you can find it on our last episode. But we're jumping into part 2 of the mailbag. I have a bunch of questions to get to, including whether or not Kevin Durant would complete a starting 5 that can compete in the top of the East. And then we get to some names of potential free agents and other marginal players that Miami could add this offseason. But we're going to start with the big one that comes from Brinks, who writes in, is Zion the move they make? Question mark. That's the question, David. Zion Williamson. Unclear if the Pelicans are going to move on from him this offseason, right? There's a lot of things going on there. They fired David Griffin. Yep. So they have new front office in charge. Again, unclear how they view Zion, if they want to build around him. There's been some talk about would they just waive him because he's on like a $39 million contract or something. It's fully non-guaranteed if they waive him before the end of the June or something. They're not going to just waive him. I would be shocked at that point. He still has value, I think, as a trade guy.
Yeah.
He's a superstar when he's healthy and right. The question is, and the issue is, he is so rarely healthy and right. When it comes to his body, the conditioning, breaking down physically, is this the kind of guy that you want to invest in? I think it's fair. But also at the same time, the contract kind of has get out of jail free cards every single year. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't kill you, right? You can always just waive him and walk away from the problem. But on the flip side, you don't want to give up a ton for him because then you're because if it doesn't work out, then you're just sort of left with nothing. So Zion to me is fascinating. I don't know that the Pelicans are looking to trade him, but if they are looking to trade him, should the Heat give him a call?
That is a billion-dollar question there, and it's just. What a conundrum, because for all the talent and everything else, as you said, there's also the flip side of that. The contract is not as much of a concern because of those clauses that are baked in, but the health, the availability, those are legitimate concerns. I mean, they've been a concern since he was drafted. And it feels like that's the challenge that Miami wants to take on. They did that with Tim Hardaway, too. I mean, I know this is going back a ways, but Tim Hardaway's knee was blown out in the mid-90s, and he had lost a step in Golden State. And that's when Pat Riley said, you know what, we'll kind of give him a chance here. And he wound up thriving in Miami for a number of seasons. So this is not unlike something that Pat Riley would do. It's like, you know what if we get him, and if you can get him for the right deal, where you don't have to give up one of your star level players.
Remind us what the deal was for Hardaway, for context.
Oh, it was not much. Billy Owens, I think, was the centerpiece of that. You wound up getting Chris Gatling alongside.
Yeah.
Or they included Chris Gatling. I don't know. It was not much. He was damaged goods, if I recall correctly. And so they were kind of more than willing to unload him.
Kevin Willis and Bimbo Coles.
What's that?
Kevin Willis and Bimbo Coles.
To Golden State?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Willis played for another 15 seasons after that or something like that. That was ridiculous. But, yeah, he was not a star at that point in time anyway. And so I don't know. It was, I guess they got Billy Owens with Tim Hardaway. Wow, I misremembered that one completely. But, yeah, it's just, this is a challenge that Miami could see and say, you know what, this is where we get a young star. He's going to put butts in the seats, which is absolutely a plus from the Heat. he's going to be a name that everybody is going to be familiarizing yourself with. And then at the same time, there's star power there attached to it. I'm also concerned about the fit. Am I crazy in thinking that he might not just be a good fit with the roster as currently constructed? You'd have to really kind of tinker around it. But I suppose it's worth the gamble just so you can have that kind of explosive star level player there. Is he the superstar that can help Miami the most? It's, again, between his game and the way it functions and the lack of availability, is he the superstar that can take Miami to that next level of competition and contention? I don't know.
When he's on the court, yes. I hear your concerns about the fit. Specifically, he's got to play the power forward spot, and he's going to have to play with Bam as your starting front court. The other three guys have to space the floor then. Like, that is a must. But when Zion is right and he's playing well, he's second behind Giannis in terms of dominating the paint.
Yeah.
Nobody dominates the paint like Zion, except for Giannis. I mean, it's Shaquille O'Neal numbers that he puts up. He's unstoppable in and around the restricted area. And when he's out in transition, it's crazy. And there were even times last year where defensively, the last 2 years, I should say, when he's really healthy, he locks in defensively, and he could become a game changer, like a playmaker defensively in terms of jumping past lanes, steals, and just barreling his way in transition for dunks. And he's exciting. So the idea of Zion Williamson is really interesting, but the idea of Zion was always one thing, and then the reality of Zion is always another thing. I mean, he's less reliable than Kawhi Leonard at this point in terms of health and availability, which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
So as enticing as it might be, you can't give up a lot for him. Bam would be off the table. Tyler Herro would be off the table.
I think so.
You couldn't trade any of those guys for Zion with a straight face. It would be way too risky. Two guys who are available. Again, Tyler Herro, top 10 in the league in minutes per game, played more than 70 games, all-star year. You don't trade a guy like that for Zion. And plus, if you got Zion, you would need Tyler Herro for the spacing. And at the same time, I don't know that Tyler Herro is or Bam Bam, I'm sure the Pelicans would love to have Bam, but you're not trading Bam for Zion. Tyler Herro doesn't make much sense in New Orleans because they already have DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum. They've got guards that they like. You start getting to, it's like, okay, are we trading Wiggins for Zion? That doesn't seem like it's worth it for New Orleans, especially, I mean, just from a value perspective, but also they've got Herb Jones coming back. They've got Trey Murphy coming back. Like, they don't even need Wiggins.
Yeah.
We're getting into like Terry Rozier's expiring. Would it be Rozier's expiring and 3 first-round picks? That seems like New Orleans has no reason to take Terry Rozier. If they want the salary relief, they just waive Zion. They get it right away, as opposed to having to wait for Rozier to come off the books in a year. If they want the 3 first-round picks, fine. But Miami giving up 3 first-round picks for Zion, that seems like a lot. And then you're getting into the Duncan Robinsons and the Kyle Anderson contracts, and none of that makes any sense for New Orleans either in terms of a straight Zion deal. So maybe as throw-ins, but not as the centerpiece. So I don't really know that there's a deal here that makes sense. I'll say this, and then we can move on to our next topic, David. But this would be the ultimate NBA science experiment, wouldn't it? Zion Williamson, number 1 pick, superstar potential, generational prospect, superstar at Duke the way that nobody at Duke has ever been a superstar, and that's saying a lot. Like, Zion's star power at Duke was greater than even Cooper Flagg's this last year. It's hard to when he stepped through his sneaker, that was a national story. To go from that to a guy who went even just 2 years ago in the play-in tournament, I know you remember just going toe-to-toe with LeBron James. And it looked like he was going to be carrying the Pelicans to a playoff berth. And then to go down with another injury the way that he went down. When he's right, he is so good. But it's his conditioning that has continually gotten in his way. And to put him in Miami, the best conditioned team in the league, the NBA, I'm sure, would want it because they're like, if there's anybody that can save this superstar, it's this organization.
Ooh.
It would be the ultimate science experiment. It would be really cool. I don't see how it gets done, but it would be a very cool science experiment.
Maybe Adam Simon makes a phone call and kind of says, you know what, send him to Miami. Because then
Silver,
that
you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Adam Silver, yeah. Sends that phone call in and kind of says, help Miami. Because then that kind of is a move. It's like if there's a team that can unlock his superstardom and get him to be healthy and everything else, Like, it could be Miami, and then that would just benefits everybody in the league,
Yep.
right?
If he gets waived for some reason,
Wow.
then you just pick him up. That would be the dream
Good
scenario,
connection,
right?
Yeah.
Then you just pick him up. Would Zion even want to be picked up by Miami? He might see the conditioning and be like, I don't want any part of that.
He's not hesitant to. I don't think he's reluctant about conditioning. We've heard the stories before. It just doesn't ever seem to take for too long. Although, and then there's the health issues. Like,
he's in the worst. He would go from the worst medical staff in the league, the Pelicans. Like, people know, like, inside the league, they're known as the worst medical. They share a medical staff with the football team.
that's saying something.
Yeah, to the best, arguably one of the best in Miami and the best conditioning program, bar none. All right, we're going to talk about Kevin Durant. Plus, are there moves on the margins that could help the Heat fill out a roster around Kevin Durant? All of that and more as we continue our mailbag after this here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by CarGurus. Shopping for a car should be exciting, not exhausting. But between the confusing prices, the hidden fees, so much of it can feel really overwhelming. That's why you should try using CarGurus. They help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. With over 4 million listings, CarGurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the U.S. They verify dealers, they provide real price analysis, and they give you the tools and data you need to make the right choice without second-guessing yourself. If you need a deal you can trust, well, CarGurus makes it easy to compare vehicles side by side with unbiased deal ratings. And their best feature, well, they've got these price drop alerts that you know exactly when the perfect car for you is available for your budget. It's no wonder similar web estimated traffic data shows that CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. So if you're looking to buy or sell your next car, well, you can do that today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Malachi writes in, let's assume Kevin Durant is on the Heat's roster with Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo next season. Plus, Davion Mitchell has re-signed with the Heat, and we're able to keep Kel'el Ware. How would you view that starting lineup among the rest of the Eastern Conference? So to recap, it would be Davion Mitchell, Tyler Herro, Kevin Durant, Bam Adebayo, and Kel'el Ware. That's Miami's hypothetical starting five. How do you think that compares to the rest of the Eastern Conference, David?
Fairly well, but I mean, there's a huge question mark there. And what version of Ware are we going to see? Like, I think it's so unfair to expect him to take a significant leap over the offseason. Are we basing this on what we saw last year as a rookie and assuming that he kind of just doesn't make much of a leap? Because it's kind of hard to predict exactly what or how far he'll be able to develop over his first offseason. Let's assume he puts on a little more weight and maybe he's a little bit more adept at handling some of the bigger centers in the league. If that's the case, I think that's a pretty good lineup. I'd say, given that Boston's going to be without Jason Tatum for most of next year, if not all of it, they're probably better than the Celtics. I would say they're better than most of the lower tier teams, for sure. I think it stacks up against, where does it measure against, say, Indiana or Orlando? Kind of like those, I would say, still mid-tier teams in the Eastern Conference. As good as Indiana's been, I don't think anybody expected them to be a top 2 team in the East. Yet here they are. So that's where they kind of, I see where that's where Miami kind of stacks up, as if they can be one of those mid-tier teams in the Eastern Conference rankings, but still capable of perhaps making a run to the top 2 or 3, depending if things break right in their favor. Cleveland still has the better lineup. I mean, that's a really, really good team that just laid a massive egg in the playoffs against a really good Indiana team, and also faced a lot of injury at the same time. So I would say that maybe a handful of teams, 2 or 3 teams, the Knicks, the Cavs, maybe, and maybe that's it. Might have a better lineup than the Miami Heat, if that's the case.
I think they'd have the 4th best lineup in the East.
Who are the
starting
3
5
teams that have them? Okay.
Cavs, Knicks, Pacers.
Okay.
Those teams are.
You think the Pacers starting lineup?
Yes.
Okay.
No
All
question. Right. They have one of the best starting 5s in the league. Halliburton is a superstar. Nembhard is the hipster version of Derek White. And that says a lot, because I feel like Derek White is the hipster version of everybody's favorite NBA player. Neesmith is awesome as a 3-and-D guy. Defensively, Pascal Siakam is borderline all NBA, if not third team all NBA.
You're right.
Miles Turner's
You're
awesome. Like, there's no weak spots. Like, that's an awesome starting five. The Knicks are they're carried by they have no bench. Their starting five is great though.
Yeah.
The Cavs have some decisions though. I mean, do they keep Mitchell and Garland together? There's some stuff there. I think their starting five ultimately looks the same next year, and if it's the same, that'll be fine. The Celtics have to take a step back, gap year for them with Tatum out. Don't forget about the 76ers.
Oh,
with Embiid coming back, Paul
Maybe.
George coming back.
maybe.
You got Maxey, McCain coming back.
Yeah.
I would put Miami behind Cleveland, the Knicks, and the Pacers. I would put that starting five behind them, and I'd put them in that same area as the 76ers and the Atlanta Hawks with Jalen Johnson and coming back. Okongwu made a leap. If that holds going into next year, that's a big deal. You've got Trae Young, Dyson Daniels. There's some good stuff that they got going on. The Magic, I'd still put. To me, the Magic are more of a we've got 9 guys that we really like, but their starting five I think is fine. I don't think it's up there with the rest of these teams. Let's get to. We got 3 different questions. I want to read them, and then I want to kind of get to our answers here. But they're all sort of the same thing. 651 writes in. Let's talk around the margins. Let's say the Heat miss out on a significant star this offseason. How do you guys think that they go about improving the roster? Preferably name specific players and the possible players that have to go out. So he's talking about trades there. The Untrained Eye talks about if the Heat strike out on a superstar, should they pursue trading for a high-level role player such as Kobe White, Cam Johnson, Nikola Vucevic, or Steven Adams? And then Terrence writes in, aside from a star player, what type of player would be a valuable addition to the Heat, and who might that player be? So we could talk about margin trades, lateral moves. We could talk about free agents, but people want names, David. And we put together a list of names, you and I, before we started recording. We didn't see them, but first, Kobe White, Cam Johnson, Nikola Vucevic, Steven Adams, are any of those guys on your list, or do you have another way that you want to go here?
They're not on my list. Not on my list. Those would have to be acquired via trade. I don't know that without seeing what that first move is, it's kind of hard to peg exactly what the next step would be. We could talk. I mean, again, we did talk about this last week. We think length and defense and along the perimeter in particular, 3-and-D type versatile wing players are probably Miami's most logical step because they just need they need something. You know, if you've got a starting lineup built around Tyler, you're going to need to have high-level defenders around him in order to kind of complement what he does. And that being the case, I think that's what you target. And yet I don't know that there's going to be a lot of those. They're in such high demand. You're not going to be able to find those. And none of the names that you mentioned, I think, fit that category. Cam Johnson, a heck of a shooter. So is Kobe White. I don't know that they're going to be gettable for whatever Miami has to offer.
Yeah, Kobe White makes no sense on this roster to me. Cam Johnson would be interesting, but his reputation on NBA Twitter, it feels like every fan base wants to trade for Cam Johnson. I'm like, if he was that good, Brooklyn wouldn't be this bad. It's a little strange to me. Vucevic is past his prime. Steven Adams is awesome, but I don't know that he moves the needle enough for Miami. That would be like
what would his fit be here? Yeah.
Right, it would be a backup off the bench, which is fine. You know, I think Miami could use it, but not at whatever it is, $12 million a year or whatever he's making.
Great personality having a locker room, but not going to make much of a difference.
Totally. Love Steven Adams. I've got a couple of trade names that I want to throw your way, and then I've got some free agents.
All right. I've got some.
Do you have any trade names?
Nope. I didn't even think about trades.
All right, let's not spend a lot of time on it. Drew Holiday to me is interesting. We know Miami kicked the tires on him when Portland was trying to move him. He ends up going to Boston.
Yep.
It's just at 37 years. What is he? 37 years old? He's old.
Yeah,
35,
yeah.
37. With the contract that he's got, to me, is a little too rich. And I don't know what contract you'd have to get off of if you're Miami, because now you're eating into 2026 cap space. Could you, even if you just did a Wiggins for Drew Holiday trade straight up,
he's only 34.
Downgrade. 34.
He's only 34.
He'll be 37 by the end of his contract.
Okay.
And he's making almost $40 million a year at that point. It's just a little too rich. So I would probably stay away from Drew Holiday, probably. The other name I really thought about was Lou Dort. We were talking about length and defense. There you go. And having him in Miami would be pretty cool.
Sure.
And I would go so far as to say also re-sign Davion Mitchell. Like, he wouldn't replace Davion. I want both of them here. I want those lineups. Because we see what Oklahoma City could do with Dort and Alex Caruso.
Yeah.
I want two of those guys on my team. And the Thunder might sneakily have to make a salary-saving move here. And with Caruso under contract, the way he's played in these playoffs, with Case and Wallace coming up, and what his potential is offensively, and he's been awesome for them defensively too, could Dort be the odd man out? It's interesting. I don't know what it would cost. Not important. But it would be a phone call that I would make if the Thunder are looking to maybe shed some salary here.
The Dort addition would be exciting, and that seems like the perfect player that Miami would love to grab. I think he's too important to what Oklahoma City has been able to accomplish this year, and look, their journey's still not even over, even as we're talking about this. So I don't even if
they win the championship, you almost have to keep it together, right? Yeah,
yeah. So it might all be a moot point. Yeah, that's it. I mean, if that's the kind of names that you're looking at, it doesn't seem like a trade for that high level role player seems likely available. It just might be somebody who isn't either had the opportunity to pop, or maybe more of a fringe type player that could at least add some specialization to Miami's depth.
Yeah, I you know me, I'm into the second draft guys. Like, could you get Jaden Ivey from Detroit for something?
Yeah, I like that one.
You know, players like that where, hey, let's bring them in, get him in our system. Maybe we can turn him into something. And again, we're not talking about star players. We're not even talking about fringe all-stars. We're just talking about guys like, oh, maybe they could do something here. Like a Davion Mitchell, exactly. Like, you can look at, I don't know, is there a John Collins coming from Utah? It wasn't an awesome season for him, but maybe there's something there, or Jordan Clarkson to come off the bench, or there's names all around. But you and I have a list of free agents. These guys are going to be available. I want to talk about that list as we wrap up our mailbag here. We're going to do that next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Skims. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, well, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try. Let me tell you, it really lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with underwear, with its fit, comfort, just finding the right style for me. And Skims changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with a perfect balance of comfort and style. I tried the Skims boxer briefs, and let me tell you, I'm hooked. They're perfect for most lifestyles, any lifestyle, really. For my active lifestyle, they move with me. They never lose their shape. They stay in place all day. Whether I'm working out, just running errands, picking up my son from school, whatever it takes, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and Skims stores. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, you select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Skims is the official underwear partner of the NBA, WNBA, and USA Basketball. We'll be right back.
First free agent that I want to talk about, Bruce Brown.
Oh.
Was he on your list?
I thought he probably was ungettable based on his contract.
So that's a good point. We should start there. Miami's going to have the taxpayer mid-level exception. It's $5.7 million in veteran contracts. That's what they're going to be able to use. They do have some trade exceptions that they could use and stuff like that. We don't have to get into it. It could hard cap them. So just for all intents and purposes, we're not going to be talking about those things. I do wonder if it's been a couple of down years for Bruce Brown. I don't know what his value is. I know he just signed a $20 million contract, but that was a contract signed in order to get traded, and then he ended up being the big piece that went to Toronto out of Indiana in the Siakam deal. But he shot a respectable clip from deep during Denver's 2023 championship run. He was awesome for that team. Has not made that same impact since. He's shot 32% and 33% from three the last two seasons. It's his biggest swing skill. I honestly don't know what Bruce Brown would go for. I would be a little surprised if he went for the full $14, $15 million mid-level at this point, based on the fact that he's played for, three different teams over the last couple of years. It doesn't feel like that market is out there the same way anymore.
No, it's a good point. And I think he does make a lot of sense. And he does feel like an upgrade over what Miami has, but not a major upgrade. I don't know. I like the name. I also just wonder whether or not we've already seen the best of Brown and what he has to offer for this roster. It seems like a feel-good decision, and he'd be a player that I think a lot of Heat fans would like with his tenacity and versatility and everything else like that. We know about the University Miami connection. I don't know. It's just there's a lot to make sense about it, and at the same time, I don't know. I have questions about whether or not it's the type of player that they'd be able to acquire. But yeah, I like that name. It's a good first name.
The other name I had was Tyus Jones.
Okay.
He signed for the minimum last year.
Yeah.
With Phoenix because he wanted the playing time. He said that there were bigger offers out there from other teams. I know that the Heat have had interest in Tyus Jones in the past. I don't know to what degree that they actually wanted to make a move for him. But he's somebody that I think is interesting to the coaching staff because of... I think he's interesting to all coaching staffs. Coaches could just try... He doesn't turn the ball over. That's why. A guy like Eric Spoelstra would love that. He'd also walk into the Heat locker room as the team's best passer. And even if he didn't start, it would make a lot of sense to play him with Bam, just so that you have a guy who can feed Bam in that pick and roll, get those entry passes into him, make Bam's life easier. I can see him being a fit. And when we talk about versatility, it's guys like that Miami doesn't have on the roster, where you can kind of go to a 1-5 traditional look. And the Heat don't really have a 1-5 traditional look, which is crazy to think about. But he would kind of give them that look if they wanted to get to it. I don't know what... to me, it feels like he'd be able to... that he could be had at the taxpayer mid-level, but I could be wrong on that.
I think it's the perfect name for Miami.
Did you have him on your list too?
Sense. I did, yes.
Okay.
He seems, I from what I remember of the reporting at the time, he was kind of mulling between Miami and Phoenix, and ultimately chose the 1-year prove-it deal with Phoenix because, well, they were going to contend for a title, and you get a chance to play with superstars like Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant.
He was going to start where in Miami he wasn't going to start over Terry Rozier. Right. Oh wait,
right. So that was the decision-making process there. And look, I mean, between the Duke connection, he could be thinking to himself, I should have stayed. I should have gone with my gut and signed with Miami rather than trying to prove it with a team that would look like they might be contending for a title. Didn't work out that way. And so now with second thoughts and kind of the 40-40 hindsight, 20-20 hindsight, you can say to yourself, this was probably the right move for me, and it can kind of bolster his value around the league. I'm not saying he's going to take another 1-year prove-it deal, but I could see a 1+1.
He might have to. Like, I don't.
Yeah, he might.
I don't think the contract that was out there last year is out there anymore, and that's sort of the hit you take when you kind of make yourself a veteran minimum guy.
Yep.
Like that matters. People, front offices don't care that you took a pay cut. They said, well, that's your market now. That's part of the negotiation. Any other names that you're excited about on your list?
That's a hell of a caveat to throw in there. Excited about?
Names
not
that you
really.
Think we should talk about on our list. Fair enough.
Names I've got: Tim Hardaway Jr.
I had him too.
The Miami connection is really all I've got, and I think that he's kind of done. Like, he was okay. He was Tim Hardaway Jr. for the Detroit Pistons, and yet he provided a spark just as easily as he, cost him some things here and there. So I think what you're getting with the full Tim Hardaway experience. I just you hope that you can kind of appeal to him and say, look, we could use your versatility as a wing player, wing scorer, and we love you being a part of the Heat family. So that's basically it.
No. One thing on Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's going to be available because Malik Beasley is also an unrestricted free agent out of Detroit, and they're going to make him the priority.
Correct.
Right, and so Hardaway Jr. probably walks away, and Tim Hardaway Jr. might be calling Miami, right? Saying, hey, you have a spot for me. Because there is a connection, obviously, between the family, and I think it's obviously a very strong connection. Right. I like the idea. Tim Hardaway Jr., I like it a lot. The question is, would you rather have Tim Hardaway Jr. or Alec Burks? And you could probably get them both at the minimum at this point. And
but why would you?
Just to switch it up, literally.
Maybe.
I think Tim Hardaway. I think Hardaway's better than Burks. I think he's just a little bit more consistent as a shooter.
Should I go through the last couple of names here real quickly?
Yeah, give me a couple more.
Lonnie Walker.
Oof. Okay, skip.
Seth Curry.
Don't hate it. Is he a free agent?
Yes.
If you lose Duncan
And,
Robinson, I like that as a guy.
that was the thought process.
Sharpshooter off the bench. Yeah.
And Al Horford.
Al Horford. Wow. That would be Ray Allen 2.0, wouldn't it?
Maybe, but like he's only got a limited amount of time left. He won his ring. Back to Florida. Hispanic community here, Latino community in South Florida. Ooh. His dad played at the University of Miami, Tito Horford. I don't know how many times we've heard it. I argued back in 2000, whatever it was, that they should have signed him instead of Hassan Whiteside, and I was absolutely right about that. This could be a chance for him to kind of say, look, nobody would blame him. We know, as you said, it's going to be a gap year for the Boston Celtics. I don't think anybody would blame him for coming down here, especially if they're able to acquire that superstar that kind of screams, okay, now we're in contender. And you kind of need those high-level role players to say, let's give it for, ring chasing, if you want to look at it that way. I don't think anybody would, and they wouldn't hold it against Horford. Like he's done his time. He's played with the number of teams that he has. It's basically just, it's not basically, it's Atlanta and Boston, and he's been
cup of coffee with Philadelphia and the Thunder. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. God, I forgot. See, I forgot about those because he was kind of a
Philadelphia salary dumped him to the Thunder.
Yeah.
Dumb move on their part.
Right. I totally blocked that out. Man, totally blocked that out.
But you're right. With Tatum going down, Horford might have to rethink things. Horford might not even get the opportunity to rethink things, right? Boston might just walk away from him or offer him a minimum and say, look, with our salary cap, we could only give you the minimum. And at that point, Horford would be like, well, Tatum's out for a year. I probably only have another year left. Why would I play for them for a gap year? I can go to Miami, who just traded for Kevin Durant or something like that, right? And say, come off the bench. He could play with Bam and with Kel'el.
Yep.
I love it. I'm in. This is a great call. I had more names, but I don't even want to name them. I want to end on that high note. Bring Al Horford home, baby. I love Al Horford. Nice. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.